Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Hyperlegible, a not boring radio production. Today, I get to chat live with Mike Solana, the founder and editor-in-chief of Pirate Wires, one of my favorite publications on the whole internet and the only one that I read every day. My early morning routine consists of swiping away all of the garbage in my other inbox in Superhuman and leaving Pirate Wires 3 morning takes. If you don't subscribe already, you have to. It's a beautiful combination of well-researched, opinionated, and beautifully written. So I've trained myself to notice Pirate Wires in my inbox so I don't delete it, and every once in a while I get a little treat. It says Mike Solana / something. This time it was Mike Solana / Golden Age. You'll hear this about a lot of our guests because this is why I do Hyperlegible in the first place, but Mike is one of my favorite writers on the internet. One of those few whose name in my inbox gives me a little dopamine hit. His writing is unlike anything out there. He's not afraid to tackle tricky subjects, not afraid to form his own opinion, not afraid to be earnest, and he writes the cover off the ball in a way that feels entirely his. The piece that we discussed today, called Golden Age, is pure Solana. He starts by copying to having a lovely time in Disney World before taking us on a tour of Walt Disney's vision to build a whole futuristic city in the Florida swamplands. He talks about why China has been able to execute on Disney's vision where America hasn't, and what it would take to build a modern version of the world that Disney wanted to create. It's a world that Solana calls Golden City, a place where houses are cheap and rare earth metals are processed. It makes me nostalgic for this future, and after listening to this conversation, I hope you'll join our small but mighty chorus of voices asking President Trump to just give Solana the acreage he needs on federal land in California to make Golden City a reality. We talked all about this piece, Golden Age, and much, much more live in conversation at the Manhattan Lab in New York City. Thanks to Matt Marlinsky, who was nice enough to give us his space and to record for us. Thank you, Matt. You'll get to hear it all after a quick word from our sponsor. Hyperlegible is sponsored by my friends at Readwise, who build software that helps you get the most out of your reading. I've been using Readwise for years to help me on my newsletter, my general curiosity, and now this podcast, Hyperlegible. If you like listening to podcasts like Hyperlegible, if you're the kind of nerd who likes to listen to conversations about essays, then you're going to love Readwise. It's like Pocket, but next generation and much, much better, with best-in-class highlighting, annotating, AI, and more. It not only supports web articles, but also YouTube with highlightable transcripts, newsletters, PDFs, EPUBs, and even X-Threads. If you want to give it a try, you can go to readwise.io/hyperlegible. That's readwise.io/hyperlegible, where you can start a free trial and get all the articles that we discuss here on Hyperlegible automatically added to your account. You'll find articles from Tina He, Atsav Memoria, Julian Lair, Alex Danko, Parakeet, Conrad Bastable, Brian Potter, and now you'll find Golden Age by Mike Solana. Solana, welcome to our first live episode of Hyperlegible. Pumped to do this in person with you. In just like 2 minutes, could you summarize Golden Age?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And thank you for asking about the piece. I love talking about my work.
That's the whole premise of the show.
Can I talk about this piece? I'm like, yes, thank you. So I mean, Golden Age is, I guess that piece of language, Golden Age of Trump's, super evocative. I think super exciting. It's something that I really want for us. But I think maybe we all have a question of, well, how do you get there? What does that look like, and how do you do it? What does it actually mean? And it doesn't quite feel like we're on the path to it right now. So what would get us on the path to it? I was in Disney World with my family recently, and it just kind of, I guess, shook together a lot of thoughts I've had for a long time and a lot of things I've talked about in the past and cared about, sort of, or expressed my caring about publicly before. And probably the big important nugget there would just be, how do you build anything? And it starts with a vision, and that is just, baked into every inch of Disney World. But more importantly, Disney World itself, the one in Florida, is basically our world's kind of first charter city.
Yeah.
There's a strong legal arrangement there, a strong and important legal arrangement that led to what is effectively a working city. It's not quite a city. It like legally was a city until recently, or functioned like a city. And they built sort of an entertainment industrial complex, I think they call it on Wikipedia, on top of it. But it could have been a city. We sort of pivoted away. Yeah. But the blueprint is there to build things. And it's just this requirement of relationship between the businesses or a business and the government, which is something of a kind that we don't really see much in America, almost never. And I think it is really the only path forward for us at this point for a variety of reasons that maybe we can get into in the pod.
I mean, what was running through my head as you were saying that was just like, even with Twitter, with X, imagine how mad people would be if Walt Disney tried to do that today. Like maybe just for that reason.
Oh my God. While I was there, the trip was like, yay, happy. I'm in Disney World with my family, my niece and nephew. I've never seen it before. It's super fun. I'm feeling inspired, as I always do when I'm there, because of just what they've built. It's a very weird place, and it's very grand, and it's huge, and there's all sorts of interesting transportation, and it's fun, and people are happy. After a couple of days, I got a little bit depressed, and it was the sort of this nagging thought that I had that like, man, they actually, not only can nobody else do what Disney did, Disney cannot even do what Disney did. They were, even in the way they're building now, is very different than the way they used to build. But I mean, just legally speaking, I don't think that they could do anything this ambitious anywhere else in the country, and probably not even in Disney if they wanted to get really crazy. I don't think they would. I don't know that they would have the political will to do it. And it is, there's something really sad about that. We're living in a country where I think that they just, after the Magic Kingdom opened in 1971. 5 decades later, I think New York City just laid down its first bit of rail track. Was it on the Second Avenue subway line? Yep. They just like finally opened it. I mean, that's the difference that we're talking about here. And then concurrently, you have a place like China where they're just building left and right. Shenzhen is a charter city or special economic zone, but it functions like a charter city, and basically modeled off Epcot Center. It's like, I don't know that it was, I don't know that they were cribbing directly, but it is Epcot's. It is the original vision for Epcot is what happened at Shenzhen. And you're doing it in the context of a country that has laid down, I don't even know, hundreds of thousands of miles of track. I think at this point, maybe it was like 160 when I checked. It's in the piece. I forget the exact number. America has lost something like 28,000 miles of track in that time since Disney opened. And it's really bleak. And so I do think that we need a way out of this when we start talking about things like the golden age and, bringing back American manufacturing. There are people who I think make fun of those ideas. There are people who think, rah, rah, like we're just doing it. It's awesome. We're building. And I am in this, I think, other category, which feels like it's a very small population of people who I am completely on board with the mission. I think it's super important. I think the things that Trump says he wants, I want. I just don't think that we're on the path to them at all. And so I'm now sitting here wondering, well, how do we get to those things? And I think it looks like a partnership between the government and we basically need a Disney.
I think that's like independent minded would be that third group where that sounds great to me too. And yeah, you're not getting there. Perfect segue. Thank you for that. One of the things that I love about your writing is you're able to pull off these incredibly earnest things that nobody else could, or at least does. Like your pinned tweet is, I want us to be fucking amazing. There's one from this that I want you to talk about. I took a few days off from the internet last week to spend some time with my family at Disney World, and I found the place, as I have found it since my early childhood trips to Fort Wilderness, almost overwhelmingly inspiring. So you're the teal-supported billionaire media mogul who's trying to own the libs. Like, how do you get away with that kind of the dichotomy there?
I don't know. I think I don't really think about it. I just write what I think is important. And I've always done that. There were things for a time that I did not say that I thought were important because I was worried what people would think about them. And that I just kind of let go of. And now it's just whatever I think needs to be discussed, I discuss. I do agree that there is a kind of, it feels disjointed or something, or out of place, unusual. It's this combination of maybe what some people would term techno-optimism or just optimism in general with my, whatever you would call my politics, not the sort of lob state politics. And And also I think then my cultural sensibilities are more like, I mean, I lived in Brooklyn. Like I love all that annoying music. I love all those annoying movies. And maybe that is the thing that has driven some of the left-wing writers the most furious. Like that, it's just like, that's a strange, it's like the proximity is too great that, you know, they're mad, but it's different than when Ben Shapiro does it or something. I also don't think our politics are the same, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I try not to think about it. I try just to speak, and Disney is a huge part of my life. I mean, Disney is he is the guy for me. I mean, he's the guy that I think is the most incredible, the most inspirational. When I think about my career and who, living or dead, I would want to be like, I don't want to be like Disney, but the way he went about his career is the most exciting to me. So he started really small. He started with short little cartoons before movies, perfected them. Moved on to a 7-minute, I think it was Three Little Pigs, perfected it. Everyone's acclaimed, right? He moves on. They're still making those. His team's making those, but he's moving on to the next thing. Now he's doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's an animated feature. Knocks it out of the park, changes the way that we think about film. But rather than put all of his focus into the next Snow White, he oversees the next handful of Snow Whites. There's like Cinderella, Pinocchio. I think Dumbo is one of them. I think Peter Pan is happening back around that time. But he's overseeing that. He's already moving on. Now he's doing Disneyland. His idea is like, I'm going to bring this to the physical world now. He's always challenging himself and moving on to the next thing. And the Magic Kingdom is where he passes away. Disneyland has now changed the way that we think about spaces. It invents the theme park. The entire world is like, what the fuck is happening over there in America? And he's not over there celebrating. He's fucking off to the swamps in Florida. And he's like, I just bought 25,000 acres of swampland and citrus groves quietly through a series of shell corporations. And now I'm going to build a city. And people are just like, they don't know what to do with him. And he's just always challenging himself. And he passes away, sadly, before Magic Kingdom even opens, right before Magic Kingdom opens. So he oversaw the construction and things. But that is the way. That's just inspiring to me. And when you're in that park, you feel that and you see that. And so coming out of that, I was like, man, I've got to write about this.
Yeah.
I can't write about tariffs, even though people are fucking demanding it every day. Solana, why won't you talk about tariffs?
I think you did write about tariffs, right?
I've written about tariffs.
Well, you've written about tariffs, but even this is kind of like, that's like not the answer. This is the answer.
This is the problem. Maybe not the problem. This is the terrain. The internet is this seething, just like, hellscape, this like information rich and yet negative environment where there's like an endless amount of it, but it's super low quality. Everybody is mad. It's super polarized, and people kind of want you to speak to certain topics in a certain way. They don't want you to be, it's not that they don't, I don't think they think about it consciously. Like they don't want you to be yourself. It's more like maybe for identity purposes, it just hurts them a little bit when you're not exactly like them or something. I don't know what it is.
Well, I mean, on the tariff one, I think it's kind of a compliment, right? People want to say like, I trust your other opinions. I don't know what to think about tariffs. So what does the Mike Solana
That was not the vibe that I got at all. I think that it was more for a lot of people, a lot of centrist anti-Trump people, there's a sense that tariffs are this unambiguous failure of the Trump administration. And that's not how I see it. It's much more complicated. And because it's so complicated, and Twitter is not a place for writing about complicated things, I have offered my perspective on tariffs and I've written about them in takes and things like that. But very rarely do I give like a snarky tweet about them or something. And I think it's because, well, for a lot of reasons, but there's a desire to see me say that the right wing is bad, is like maybe what people want me to do right now. It's like they want me to accept some kind of loss for a team that I don't even identify with, for a policy that I didn't even propose. And I'm not going to do that, because I think that the policy also is like, I understand the goal. I understand the goal of a great America that is building its own things again, which is, by the way, not even like just an inspirational idea or a kind of nice idea. We all lived through COVID. We saw that it's an existential problem that we don't build things in America. Now, in the middle of this trade war, it's just remarkable to me that people are using the trade war with China as evidence that we need to stop the tariffs rather than we need to figure out our dependence on China when they're threatening to withhold now rare earth metals.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the problem there is not the tariffs. The problem is that all of the rare earth metals are processed in China. That's the problem, which I also address in this piece, because through the Disney thing, I'm writing about Disney, but what I'm really thinking about is our path to building again. How do you do that? How did he do that? And he did that by sort of building inside of these regulatory free zones. The government, Florida state government, granted an exception to all of the stifling regulation that prevented building literally everywhere else in the country. And so here he was on 25,000 acres. It was like swamp and his imagination, and he built a fucking wonderland. And so is there a more practical version of that we can manage? And I think with things like rare earth metals, we can. I think that we can have, which I realized in the context of this recent microchip discussion. I went back and looked at my piece on that. It was called American Hustle Microchip Edition, and I broke down the CHIPS bill, and I suggested something like this, a sort of special regulatory free zone somewhere in the country, at least, where we could actually process these things, because that's the bottleneck in America. It's not that we don't have them. And I'm super inspired about it. And I want to be speaking about these things in a practical way, not in a way that wins some kind of rhetorical battle only, though I can do that if I'm forced.
I mean, that's what bums me out about the tariffs. So, because I think I mean, totally agree with the end goal, totally agree with what you're saying. And I'm just imagining the first time someone tries to reshore and build a plant in America, and then like NEPA gets in the way and they're like not able to build them. Like it's a sequencing of it. And now it's turned people against the idea of reindustrialization in general.
But let's think about microchips for a second. Let's think about the chips our dependence on Taiwan for advanced chips manufacturing. The idea that we were going to reshore advanced chips manufacturing in America 5 years ago was considered like extremely naive, hopelessly naive. You were basically a sort of down on your luck former coal miner in West Virginia. That was how people thought of you, just like a buffoon who didn't see that the world moved on, which by the way, like probably they should also be mining coal still, but separate conversation on chips. Just in terms of rhetoric, post-CHIPS bill, the bipartisan CHIPS bill, tons of waste, which I outlined in the piece. There's a lot of waste there. And was it done efficiently? I don't think so. It was, like hammering a nail with a sledgehammer or something. But there is progress to the extent that it's no longer considered hopelessly naive. The question increasingly is, well, how much time is it going to take us? What is the timeline? Will we be able to get there before Taiwan is invaded? That's a huge win. That is crazy. We went from not believing something was possible to knowing for a fact that it's possible. There are many applications of that, and rare earth metal mining and processing, these are some of these other applications that we should be exploring.
Yeah. I had a smart founder say the piece that you need to write is everybody thought TSMC Arizona was going to be a complete disaster, and it's going really, really well. Like, why did that happen?
Yes.
Do you have an answer to why that happened?
I mean, there are things in the CHIPS bill that I liked. When I wrote about the chip, I think people expect it because I had just written a piece called $1 Trillion Paint Job, where I went after Biden's infrastructure bill. It was just really a crazy bill. It was like literally $1 trillion and no infrastructure. It was just all sorts of gifts, refurbishments of infrastructure rather than the creating new infrastructure. And I'm seeing maybe as this reflexively anti like spending bill kind of guy. But chips, it was like, there was tons of waste, but there was also a very clear plan. It was for a kind of infrastructure. It was for something of critical importance to the country. And I departed from a lot of especially the libertarian writers about this. And I thought, this is what I want to see. This is much closer to what we saw in like the Manhattan Project or the Apollo Project than anything we've seen in a very long time. Not perfect, not even close, but directionally it felt kind of good. And I was cautiously optimistic. Now I'm more optimistic. And I think that is just so clearly the way. You have to have a goal. You have to have government buy-in. You have to have government support. And then you have to have emboldened visionary founders sort of leading the charge. And then something can happen. And I'm sure there are all sorts of negative externalities that I'm not thinking about. But certainly what the pessimists predicted has not come true yet. And we should be learning a lesson about this. And that is exactly right. Like the conversation you just mentioned, It's not really being had right now, but it's an important conversation.
It feels like a piece that I shouldn't be writing, the Pirate Wire should be writing. Like you've carved out this niche that is super wide and weird. You took inspiration from Disney. I can like hear as you're talking about that, you started just writing. Now you have this team that we were talking about before that's really incredible. How do you think about building out Pirate Wires kind of based on what Disney did?
I don't want to say everything because people love to fucking copy my shit left and right. I'm looking at you. Like literally constantly. So I do have a plan. My immediate goal right now is to get the Pirate Wires as you know it to a place where it functions incredibly well and delivers the kind of content, writing, takes, pod that people love with 90% less of my time so I can focus on the next stage of Pirate Wires, which probably will surprise people, I think.
I'm wearing my Moon Should Be a State t-shirt here today from Pirate Wires. Are we going to have a Pirate Wires Moon Disney World?
Let's just say there might be some foreshadowing in the branding so far.
Yeah. What's the best argument against doing golden cities in America?
Right. So the premise of the Golden City, specifically in the piece, Golden Age, was that the government could take some, regulation in San Francisco and Los Angeles has made building impossible, I would say. We've written about the high-speed rail, we've written about housing, we've written about local government, all at Pirate Wires for years. It is this sort of spaghetti mess of codes and regulations and councils and committees that really are designed in such a way as to inhibit everything.
Yeah.
So how do you get around that problem? And I think your options are like, one, don't do anything and slowly stagnate into oblivion. I'm not into that. Two, a small-scale dictatorship in San Francisco. Give it a shot. America is...
Who's going to be the dictator?
I don't know. Gary Tan.
Yeah.
Just give him a crack. Just like give him some power and let him cook. Give it a year. See how it goes. But I don't recommend that. Not a big dictatorship guy. Or three, we need some kind of parallel environment that doesn't have any of these regulations so we can just try. There are, I think, 6 million plus acres of federal land in California. Donald Trump is here waving his pen around left and right for all sorts of crazy shit. All I'm asking for is 25,000 acres. Okay, give us what we gave Disney and, bring in a team of inspiring visionary builders and build a city with lots of affordable housing connected by high-speed rail that could also be along some sort of anti-regulatory path to places where we're processing minerals, where we're mining minerals, where we're doing all sorts of other kinds of manufacturing that you can't do here because of regulations and the way they've made them sort of exorbitantly expensive. And let's just see what happens. And if the question is like, well, why don't we have them yet? Or
what's the best argument against doing stuff like this?
I think the argument against doing it, you can make an environmental argument that's just like, I want all 6 million acres of federal land to be untouched for reasons that I don't understand. You can maybe make an argument. I think that a lot of what happens is the people who get in the way of building, and let's just talk about very reasonable things. Like in San Francisco, the average building, Victorian buildings, like 3 or 4 stories, I think. That it should be 7, right? It should be as tall as Paris. Like Paris is great. Why not just libs love
in San Francisco would be beautiful.
Libs love Paris. They love it. It's French culture.
Have you watched L'Agence?
No.
On Netflix? Oh my God, it's the best real estate show. It's a French family, 4 sons, the parents. I don't like any of the other real estate shows. It's just lovely, and it makes me want to live in Paris.
Oh yeah, I love Paris. Paris is, my favorite city is probably San Francisco for a lot of reasons, but like my favorite non-American city, Paris is the basic bitches answer. And yet they're right. It's just such a good city, so beautifully planned, challenged a lot of my libertarianism. When you are super radicalized by libertarianism, you tend to say things like the government is actually not capable of doing things. Central planning and neighborhood city planning doesn't work. Like you really believe things like this. And then you go to a place like Paris and it's very hard to deny that it actually is just a gorgeous city that functions very well, that everybody loves, and it was totally planned.
What did they get right? Is it just small enough and contained enough that you can centrally plan it?
Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of it burned down, and then they actually did just replan it with a single architect. I forget his name now. The guy who created he innovated the that attic, that beautiful sort of rounded looking attic that all of the buildings have. And so a lot of it was just built by the same people, but it was planned specifically because they could. I think London had some version of this too, but I mean, Paris is a more beautiful city. Yeah. London's not bad, but Paris is more beautiful. So yeah, it's like what prevents those basic things in San Francisco, just lifting up the stories of the housing or something? It's hard. I do want to steelman it. I want to find some kind of answer and defend the people who haven't allowed it. I think on some level, it's just indefensible. It's like you have to just, I don't know.
It's just, I think it's these things happen that almost nobody really wants, except for this very small group of people who has nothing else to do and can fight to prevent things from happening. And so like, then you end up with a result that you're right. 99% of people would say like, we don't actually want this result, but some people really, really do. And they really, really want it more than everybody else who doesn't kind of individually does.
Yes. I think that's definitely true. That was true throughout the sort of culture war years from like 2017 through 2023 or whenever the vibe shifted. I think maybe if I could take the side of the NIMBYs in San Francisco, for example, because I don't think the regulation is really all NIMBY regulation. I think a lot of the regulation is just anti-progressive, period. It's like anti-business, anti-technology, anti-population growth, like just anti-everything. I think maybe some of the NIMBYs are reflexively concerned because the city has a history of building nothing other than like a drug den. Okay. It's like, okay, we're not doing anything, but now there's like a flop house next door. And so it's like when people have this, their conception of like the government allowing building is like, they're allowing a meth addict to shit in my driveway. And so if that's your association with building, then it's like, okay, well, that gives me pause. Maybe I don't want that. And, we just need something else. But the good thing about Golden City is we would see all sorts of building. And I think people would maybe see they would see this happen in a different way. And I think that we need to see that. I think we really, really, really need a model of something working before we can say, oh, well, maybe we'll try that over here or whatever.
One of the things I was thinking as I read the piece was whether or not Trump can actually just sign away federal land and say like, hey, by the way, there's, this is a special economic zone, or if that's a Congress thing, or how that would actually work.
I have no idea.
Love that.
But the great thing about this term of Donald Trump
we'll try it,
is I'm learning new incredible things about what the president can and can't do every, 30 minutes or so. There's something new. So like, just give it a shot and let's see what happens.
I love it. So people have been giving this kind of charter city idea a little bit of a try. There's California Forever doing California. They're talking about actually doing shipyards. So it's not rare earth metals, but another thing that America
that was more
of. There's Prototown, there's Esmeralda, and you write, frankly, with love, none of the other attempts to build charter cities in America have come close.
So I almost addressed every one of those companies that you just mentioned in the piece. It was too long and I had to cut it out. Maybe I'll do another piece. I came up through an organization called the Seasteading Institute. That's how I met Peter. That's how my career in tech began. That was like 15 years ago at this point, or 16 years ago. And I have a lot of love for what all of them are doing. And they've all these charter city things have really, the modern incarnation of this conversation comes from Seasteading and Patrick Friedman's. It was his nonprofit. It was a super fun, kind of idealistic, thoughtful experiment really in rhetoric and conversation, almost more than actually practically creating it, though ephemeral did come out of it. But there were no seasteads at the end of the day. The new charter city thing is something that I'm really rooting for. And I think that they're all correct, that the answer there is an answer to an important problem facing America there. But in America, it's very hard. And when I say with love, they've not come close to Disney, I'm not saying that like their ambition is wrong, their vision is wrong, that they've gone about it in a wrong way. I'm just saying they haven't succeeded. And it's like, just, they haven't. In America, California Forever is being relentlessly attacked at all sides right now by the press, by the people around them, by the local government. That's going to be a really tough uphill climb. And I'm really hoping they succeed, but I don't know how they're going to succeed. It seems very, very, very difficult. Esmeralda, it seems like there have been more gains. It's also a different scale. Devin is really smart and a really good person, and I'm excited to see how that goes. But I mean, we're not at Disney World yet levels, but who is? Like, I don't blame her for that. I'm just saying, like, we haven't achieved that yet. And I haven't seen that example. And I think it's because of how we're going about doing this. You know, we're not doing this. It needs to start far more ambitiously and with plus government buy-in, which again, for a libertarian, a lot of the people who are excited about this kind of stuff come from more libertarian, a more libertarian background. To Devon's credit, she has been chosen. She's done a different path. She's worked very closely with the community and has not tried to sort of create some magical world free of regulations. Seasteading is the purest, I think, instantiation of this idea of like just working without the government altogether. If you want to do it in America, you do need government buy-in. And then I think once you have it, which is what they had all throughout China, obviously, that's how they were. How did China build Shenzhen? Because the government is a dictatorship and they're able to build, and they said, we're going to build a fucking megacity. And then they built a megacity. And that is, we have the opposite. It's our government and our private industrialists are totally at odds with one another rather than working together towards some kind of common vision. So if we just get that collaboration to happen, I think it's like inevitable.
The right amount of dictatorship doesn't seem to be zero. Like on big projects like this, it keeps coming up. Like if I talked to Conrad Bastable about reindustrializing and what it would take. And he's kind of like, you need somebody in charge for a very long time to just say like, this is what we're doing. We're sticking to this plan. Or nuclear, like maybe China's building a lot more nuclear, and maybe nuclear is better. If there's a dictator who can just say, by the way, we're building nuclear. They want to put nuclear on the moon now. Did you see this yesterday?
Yeah.
So how do you do this without dictatorship?
Is it that you need a dictator or that you can't have bureaucrats? Like what you can't do is build something by committee. There is someone in charge and they build it. And we can just ignore government for a quick second and talk about companies. Companies are not built by committee. There's a CEO. In the world of tech, every company is owned mostly by the founder, and he is God of that company. He does whatever he wants every single day, and he builds. And every single successful model of a company that we have right now, you can just go down the top 10 most profitable. What is it? Look at the market cap of the top 10 companies in America. It's like those were created by founders with a vision who got a bunch of money and were dictators of their respective little units. I think maybe what you want to do is why I like the Charter City thing, the Disney thing, when I'm looking for like Golden City run by someone in the country with the sort of approval of the government to do whatever they want. It's maybe it's a way that you can do this inside of, in the context of a republic where we are still a nation of laws. We still have, we're a democratic republic. So we have representatives and representative democracy and things like this. But on this tract of land, I mean, that's a company. Maybe we lease the land from the government and create a company of some kind. I don't know exactly what the model looks like, but you do need to find some way to empower someone to actually make decisions, because that is the only way anything ever happens.
You talked about the fact that we've paralyzed our free men, and we've touched on it a little bit, but how specifically have we paralyzed free men? What are some examples of that?
Well, I'm talking about mostly regulation in the context of this piece. I think there are probably other ways you could talk about maybe the spiritual or cultural components of this in society, but just strictly in terms of regulation, we were talking, what was the conversation today that got kicked up? It was Catherine Boyle from A16Z wrote about all of the paperwork you get as a parent and how like crazy that is. And it just is like this huge drain of energy. And why do we do that? And I thought, man, there's like a very obvious version of that with companies, where one of the hardest things that I had to figure out at Pirate Wires, I mean, when you build a company, there are a million different things that you have to figure out, and they're all hard, and you could die at any moment in a lot of these different stages. But the one that seemed the most useless and unnecessary was just all of the paperwork I got from every corner of the country, because I have employees in multiple states, just demanding something trivial and stupid and unhelpful from me. And that helped me remember years ago, I almost started a company called Operator. And I built the wireframes for it. It was going to be an app that helped you navigate complex regulation to start a business. And I was going to start with something really simple and fun. It was going to be food trucks. And I started specifically with food trucks in Los Angeles. And there were hundreds of steps to this. And a lot of them were not obvious. It wasn't like, oh, the answer is this and you just fill out this form. They were ambiguous things that were hard to understand. And like you were maybe breaking the law always if you did, if you wanted to have a food truck, there were like any number of ways that you could be in trouble with the government just by virtue of like, there was no way not to be in trouble with the government. And the whole thing was a huge black pill for me on not just, I would say the government, but I was already black pilled on our government. I think it's more like, I thought there was a path and it seemed to me in that moment, the only way that I could even rationalize what I saw was these regulations exist specifically so businesses can't exist. It's not, there is no other justification for them. Like the reason they're this complicated, the only thing it is achieving is it is stopping people from building. There's no other way to read it. And that's what I mean by paralyzed in its most practical sense, is just these regulations that exist to stop us. There are regulations that exist to protect us or to conserve the environment or something like this. But that's not going to ever help us build anything. If you want to build anything, you need regulation that exists specifically with the goal of building something in mind.
My favorite line in the piece, the one that I nodded my head along to was, and I'm just going to read the whole thing. Ground floor, if you want to live in a world where things are built, regulation must be designed with the goal of building, not the goal of protecting, and certainly not the goal of conserving. And I saw that you tweeted that one as well, so that I know that you liked it too. We talked about this a little bit, like everything you're saying makes sense, but how do we actually make that happen? Is it federal preemption? Is it just charter cities and special economic zones? Like what is even like the beginnings of a playbook here? Because the LA example is a black pill. There's thousands and millions of those across the country. How do you like cut those lines?
Again, I mean, I think you have two options. I mean, three, if you accept stagnation and death as one of the options, there are three. But the two options that involve us surviving are like an experiment in literal dictatorship at a small scale where we say, I don't know, who is the one who keeps losing it? Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang, you are in charge of Los Angeles, and we just give him Los Angeles for like a year and see what happens.
Could you imagine being described that way? Who's someone who keeps losing? It's Mike Solana, yeah.
So we give LA to Andrew Yang, and we just let him cook, and we see what happens. Or the more practical solution is we need a series of, I wouldn't call them special economic zones, because that's language that comes from China. The first special economic zone was Shenzhen. And the whole idea was like, we're going to create a special economic zone where we don't do virulent dystopian communism.
Yeah.
That was
You're
it.
allowed to have
Literally,
economy. Yeah.
You're allowed to have a market here only.
Yeah.
That's a special economic zone. I think what we need are special development zones where you're allowed to build. And on specific things, we begin with the one that we just have to do right now, today, is more so than we need a city, is something for rare earth metal processing. That is basically been regulated out of existence in this country. In the early 90s, we were processing most of the metals on the rare earth metals on the planet. Then China, two things happened. One, China massively subsidized its industry, both in mining and in rare earth metal processing. So you have the entire weight of the government and their market there to really go to war with us on trade and corner the market on this for very obvious strategic geopolitical reasons. And then concurrently too, environmentalism was super vogue in America. It was hijacked by a bunch of anti-human psychopaths, and they created regulation on our behalf that made it so expensive to do it in America that we just couldn't, and they're all gone. That's it. That's what happened. And so obviously, if you want it to exist, you need to combat both of those two things. That involves first, massively subsidizing our own industry in a place. Second, where there are none of these regulations, it can be a very small little area. And then probably we do need to think about the fact that we've been at trade war with China, whether or not we wanted to call it that, for many, many decades. That they were waging trade war on us. I saw Matt Yglesias today talking about the trade war that Trump started. I'm not defending any of Trump's sort of decisions on tariffs or whatnot. I think they're more complex than they've been framed, but I'm not defending them. He did not wage a trade war against China. China waged a trade war against us that we tolerated for decades for reasons nobody understands. And this one is not just like, oh no, they're building all of the cheap shit. I wish we could do that. It's like, no, they're processing things that we need to exist in a modern world, and we don't have access to them now because of policies that you created and supported And we've got to get rid of that. So I think we start there with that one zone. And once it does well, and it will, then we have a model. And then it's like, okay, well, can we do this with the different kinds of manufacturing? Can we do this? Balaji's idea, recently he talked about the special Elon zone around Starbase. Love it, of course.
That's never going to happen now. Unfortunately, he's lost the will of the general public.
Yeah, but now it would be difficult. So you just got to find some roughly aligned, like someone who's closet aligned with meaningful technological progress, but is outwardly sort of like a dumb lib, and you got to get them to maybe be the figurehead. I don't know who that is. Who is that? I don't know who that is. All the major tech leaders and business leaders are pretty based now. It'll be hard to figure it out. But I also think that this is our shot. Like, I think this is what he should be doing. He should be focused on this because he's never going to have a chance ever again. He might not even have the chance now. I don't even know that we have the political will now.
This is what I mean about the tariffs. Like, yeah. I don't, not talking about any of the specifics, but I think he would have had the popularity, or like people would have been like, oh, it'd be so fun. Oh, he's doing a special development zone in the middle of California. This is great, that we might not have now. I hope that that's not the case, but that's my issue with it.
Yeah, it's not sure how much political power he even has in Congress. Yeah, there's a majority of Republicans, but they've turned against him on things. Some of them have turned against him on things before. It's a more tenuous alliance than maybe it's sometimes framed. This is why I think he's relying so heavily on the power of the pen, which Obama innovated more recently. I mean, before him was FDR, who did it more than both of them. But that's why he's relying on that. I think it's because that's the only thing, that's his best weapon right now. But I would like him to try while he can, because I don't believe that there's ever going to be a moment like this, at least not for many decades after this.
Yeah, I remember Dan Carlin, I think, on not Hardcore History, but his other Common Sense, when Obama was doing this, he was like, just imagine, like, you like this now because it's your guy. Imagine what happens when someone who's not your guy is in office, when he wields the power of the pen. And then, you know, it's interesting that it just kind of keeps ratcheting up. You set precedent one way, and then the enemy gets to use it.
Well, that's what that's the other thing I see people say. Like, I saw Claire Lehman the other day talking about, what was it? It was some executive order function or something. And she's like, oh no, it was the Harvard thing. They're talking about defunding Harvard, talking to using the IRS as a weapon or something. And it's like, you know, you like it now, but what happens when the Democrats turn against you? And I think, well, that has already happened. Like, we've already seen it in very high profile cases that you yourself were upset about just a couple years ago. I don't know why you don't seem to remember that. But it's like, we're in a blood feud now, unfortunately. It's like you have two sides. Neither one of them thinks that they're doing anything other than reacting to the other side, but both sides are escalating, and they're going to continue to do so. You saw the Democrats talking about dissolving the courts effectively, in my opinion, by packing them just a few years ago under Biden. Now they seem to like them because the courts are telling Trump he can't do things. But that'll change on a dime. It's just going to go back and forth forever. It's a relentless war for power. And I try and call shots kind of as I see them inside of that dynamic, but I also try not to pretend that it's not a completely fucked up dynamic, which I think everyone else right now on the center left is doing. It's like, oh my God, we were on the side of everything that was just and good, and you were the baddies. I'm not saying that there's not some baddie behavior happening in the Trump administration right now. I just don't see any good people in this cage match at all. And I hope while we're doing like weird government overreach shit, we can just use some of that to do something cool. That's totally all I'm asking for.
The thing that I love about pieces like this and this idea, there's, I guess, government changes first and then the culture gets behind it, which I don't think is how it actually works. And then there's, you got to change the culture. You got to get people excited about something. And then maybe people, like, somehow we can unwind this mess, and maybe there's not baddies on both sides eventually. I don't know, but start with culture. So in that vein, like, everybody close your eyes listening. Walk us through a day in Golden City in 2050. What does it look like?
The vision's not there yet. It's like, we need to start. It's like the startup version of this. I think we need to start with rare earth metal and just get that working, so people are like, oh, okay. And then you move into the other thing. But then I would say, just rather than this epically inspiring, you know, it looks like Paris, but there's a giant, gladiator statue on Alcatraz Island, and it's bullet trains everywhere, and
refinery right
domes, because there have to be domes in the future, and they're like plants. I don't know why all the futurescapes are devoid of life. It's always like metal and glass. It's like, no, there should be, everything's living kind of. It's all it's like all genetically modified a little bit. But rather than all of that, I think it's more like housing is affordable. Really affordable, like a tenth the cost of what it is right now for, let's say, a 3-bedroom apartment, so you can start a family in a city. The education is non-ideological and not insane, and just kind of is reasonable, teaching math and science and English, and it's free and good. Healthcare is more affordable. There are versions of this in the anti-regulation. I looked into MRIs recently. Almost all of the cost of the MRIs, which are insane to get an MRI, is thousands of dollars. That's almost all because of the accreditation process. The cost of labor is what's really expensive. And that's because we make it so hard to become an MRI technician. Meanwhile, like a monkey can be trained to do this job. And we see this where there are, places all over the rest of the world that do medical tourism with MRIs because they just don't have the regulations. It costs a couple $100. You're in, you're out. I heard that, I don't know if this is true, it might be not. Don't take my word for it. But I heard you can go to a mall to get them in South Korea, which sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's the way the world should work and could work if you didn't have all these stupid regulations. So that's what the city looks like. It's like actually quite basic things that we don't have, that we have accepted we'll never have. And that's really, really sad. And we deserve these things. We deserve affordable housing and transportation and healthcare and education. And the reason that we don't have them is because there are politicians who have put regulations in place so you cannot have them. They have specifically decided that there's no other reason. It's not corporate greed. It's not randomness. It's not national decline. It is straight up like there are people who were in office who passed laws that fucked you. And we just have to either undo those laws or create a place where those laws don't exist.
Amen. So there's the regulation, there's the vision, and then there's find your Disney, let them cook.
Yeah.
The inspiring version of Disney is not like whatever lib you can kind of get to go on the other side. Like who is your Disney, or what does that person look like?
Disney is my Disney. What I wish is that brain was really frozen somewhere, like they say, and we could just
reanimate the animator.
We could just, I don't know, tap into it somehow and be like, sir, can you please rebuild San Francisco for us? Just give us some ideas here. I don't think, I think that you look out at the people who are building right now, they're telling you who they are. They're building the things. And there's like, there's Jeff Bezos and there's Elon and there's Palmer Luckey, Mark Zuckerberg. Those are the ones who I've maybe loved the most. I don't know that any one of them wants this job. What I'm wondering is if there are younger people working on different versions of this right now who could eventually grow into this position, or maybe it is one of them. I don't know. I don't have. All these men are also busy, and I feel bad always putting more on their backs. It's not fair, right? It's like they're the only people who we have any evidence of who are capable of building things. And so we're like, can you also solve world hunger? Can you also, solve the medical crisis? Can you also build a city for me? Like someone else is going to have to step up.
You wouldn't have guessed that the cartoonist was going to be the guy, though. So maybe it doesn't come from those ranks. Do you think Robert Moses was good or bad in that? Or is the whole point of that whole series that
I think Robert Moses was good.
Yeah.
I think Robert Moses, this is maybe, the Peter Thiel mentorship happening to me. I mean, Peter introduced me to Robert Moses, and he marks, Robert Moses being stopped as kind of the end of progress in American cities. Because you do just, and this is not Peter, now this is me, but it seems to me like to navigate our system, you do just need like a mob boss, like taking over power and navigating. That's terrible. It shouldn't be that way. But when you have a system of laws that exist the ways that ours do to stop all creation of anything, then you need someone like Robert Moses who can navigate all of that. I think he was good. I think the more important thing though on your first question is what you said was like, no one saw a cartoonist doing that. I mean, no one even knew what he was going to do. He just kept going. I don't know. I just know that when you find people who are capable of doing stuff, they're really special and you should just you should help them. Like the government should see those people not as something to be scared of or threatened by, as we saw all throughout the last administration, but people who are resources for the country, who you could amplify the ability of by paving the way for them, getting regulations out of their way, giving them money, partnering with them, and building really, really exciting things. So yeah, I don't know quite who it is yet. I'm sure he'll step up. We'll see him. Maybe
listening or her.
Yeah,
maybe
because
listening.
I mean,
listening
Devin's
right
out
now.
there building. Like you just have to find who they are and then work with them. Like I don't know how. This is a hard thing because this is a cultural problem. But you want people in America to feel excited when someone is doing something incredible, and it seems such a simple thing. Like, why wouldn't you be excited to see someone building rockets that land or something, or self-driving cars, which feel like magic to me, or, you know, people building smart cities and it's like we should be excited and proud. And that's maybe where that's like just the job of me and you is like, you know, people who are in culture is just to tell those stories more effectively, and defend those people in story first, and then hope that the country kind of responds to that.
I'm sure you've thought a bunch about this. You know, you wrote the great We're the Media Now piece. Can it start as small as all of us are in this little thing and then kind of expand outward? Or like, how do you change the narrative?
Culture or?
Yeah, culture. I mean, like, you know, Pirate Wires has however many thousand subscribers, not Boring does, but, you know, the Today Show or whatever has millions of viewers. How do you get to a scale where you really shape the narrative? How do you think that grows?
Pirate Wires has, you know, a smaller number of people who are reading than they are watching the Today Show, but it's all the people who are building cool shit. Yeah. So I think that the power of Pirate Wires is, I would take Pirate Wires over the Today Show. Yeah. So like, I'm happy with Pirate Wires and I'm going to keep growing it. And I think that all of us are making an impact. It's a fragmented media ecosystem now. And we all have a massive reach. Any anonymous poster online with 100 followers has potentially a massive reach. Anyone can do it. So I think that alone is also empowering. So that, you know, it's like the medium itself, the openness of the medium is maybe also changing culture. It's empowering, innately empowering. People feel that they can do something. Right now it's just get attention. That's not the greatest in the world, but maybe that has some kind of a positive change. I don't know. In media, I see, in the real world, I have a lot of pessimism and sadness, but in media, I have a lot of optimism now. I see lots of people trying lots of exciting things. I actually see, like, the New York Times, generally speaking, I'm going to end up eating my words, doing a more responsible job. Yep. I see all of the new media upstarts doing really creative, interesting stuff. I see lots of talented people in lots of new mediums doing like short form video stuff and podcasting. I see a huge fight right now in right-wing politics over Joe Rogan's podcast. And the reason that is happening is because people perceive it correctly as incredibly influential. So do the presidents, so do politicians. There's a reason that Gavin Newsom has a podcast.
And Mayor Pete is now probably
making the podcast circuits, or doing the podcast circuit. Yeah, it's an exciting time to be in media. Substack is absolutely like one of these extremely important tools in the world that changes what's possible. And you'll keep seeing interesting ideas are there to find that no one is stopping you anymore. And a few years ago, that was not the case. A few years ago, people were stopping you from saying important things, but no one's doing that anymore. So I have no tolerance now for people mad about censorship and saying, like, you know, the woke mind virus or whatever. I'm like, it's like, yes, like in academia, sure. Like, I just saw this thing in Nature about white supremacy. I'm like, you're a review for peer-reviewed scientific research. Why are you talking about white supremacy? Yeah. I don't understand. That's stupid, but they're not stopping me from talking. And so there's no more excuse. And you are seeing, it's like, you know, after a rainstorm, all the mushroom caps are popping up, and I'm excited about that.
Amen. All right. Final three easy ones. If someone could only read one other of your essays, what should they read?
This one's kind of sharp. This is a sharp one. I think moral inversion is an incredibly important idea that I'm proud to have framed in a way that I hope is helpful. And you see it every day. I think it's an important piece in that it kind of pulls the curtain behind this really insidious dynamic of modern culture, which is the inversion, not just the rejection of good, but the framing of bad as good. In everything from our personal health to, I wrote this before Luigi Mangione, but with the assassination, Luigi Mangione's the terrorist attack, or whatever we're calling it, the brutal killing of that healthcare executive. That's I think that's a good piece that I've written, and I think it was well written. So maybe that one.
One piece of somebody else's, and it can be an essay, a book, but just something that everybody should read that they probably aren't yet.
The book that everyone should read is There Is No Anti-Memetics Division.
It's good.
That's the book that everyone should read.
Fair enough. All right. And if you could implant a 1-sentence takeaway to the, hundreds and hundreds of people listening to this right now, what's that 1 sentence?
This is from Proverbs. Where there is no vision, the people perish.
What a great place to end. Mike, thank you for doing this. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.